2, 1.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world right now, or if you're watching the replay or listening later on audio. Welcome to another episode of Buddhist Biohacker. I am so excited about this morning. It's actually, this whole day is awesome. We have 3 shows today. They're all awesome, but I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to our guests today because I have been following her work really since I got started 20 years ago when I attended a version of the Berkeley Psychic Institute in Boulder, Colorado at Psychic Horizons, and found her books. And so I'm really honored and happy to welcome Debra Lynne Katz. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here too. And I know we have so much to talk about.
Really, we do. And it's just an honor. And thank you for being accessible and willing to come on. This is just a treat for all of us and for everybody who's joining in the live. I see all of you guys ticking up there on the live. You can use the live or the little chat box to your right. You can ask questions, share your comments and stories. I know a lot of us were excited to have Debra on today, so you're welcome to ask your questions and I'll be moderating that throughout. And don't forget to click subscribe if you haven't already. We've hit our first milestone, so now we're headed towards a second. So thank you guys for that as well. So enough of all of that. So Debra, you have been an integral part of my journey as a clairvoyant. And so just to give everybody context, and then I want you to share about yourself, and I have a million questions too. But I found your books. I went to Psychic Horizons in Boulder, which is a version of the clairvoyant training program from Berkeley Psychic Institute. And it was really profoundly life-changing, I'm sure, for most everyone who does it, because I went from, you know, seeing shadowy figures and having all these weird feelings and things happening all throughout my childhood to suddenly at 25 years old, it was like, oh, I can manage my energy and I can actually read things instead of feeling them inside of me. Like, this is like an amazing, amazing thing. And after I left that program, I went through the first levels, it was about a 2-year thing. When I left that program, I found your books. And what I think is special about your books is, first off, I don't think you need the training program so much if you have your books, to be honest. They're very accessible and they give you so much information. But I also loved like all the activities. There's just so much information. And Extraordinary Psychic, I really, really love even more. But I always have told my clients, like, you got to do the first one first. You got to have the basics. But I think I have a blog post about your books. I've talked about your books to hundreds of my clients over the years. And so I just want to first start out by having you share about you, what you do, who you are, and then we can get more into all the nitty gritty of clairvoyance and all the other things. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, it sounds like we have so many similarities, and that's great, because I do a lot of interviews and there's all different levels of understanding of this work. So yeah, where should I start? I am, the thing that amazes me the most is that I could have lived my life as long as I did, because I was 27 years old before I realized that there were actually techniques and approaches to accessing information at will. And not that we always get everything we want as clear as we want, or, understanding it all, but to go from having no idea how to access your abilities to then be able to do that in a controlled way was just so mind-blowing. And at that point, I just became obsessed. And I realized that just simply from taking some classes and practicing. And for me, the practice is everything. It's a little bit techniques and just constant practice and constant self-observation. And also, as you said, this work is really life-changing, and it really is about being able to explore what's happening within yourself and then being able to monitor that. And, you know, when you get too emotional or your analytical mind gets in the way, just knowing how to work with that. Because it's not that you'll ever stop that from happening, but that you can minimize that, or, you know, kind of work with it in a way where it's not so distracting that it makes you just stop or draw a blank or want to run from the room or anything like that. So for me, that I just became totally obsessed. And here I am now, 28 years later or so, and still loving the work. So yeah, I am doing clairvoyant work. And also I got into remote viewing, which I see as a slightly different way to use your abilities, but I've been very obsessed with that for the last, say 12 years or so. So I pretty much spend my whole day involved in these topics every day. And then I've also, oops, sorry about that. I've also very much gotten into parapsychology research over the last few years. So yeah, between researching and doing readings and healing work and constantly talking to my friends about this stuff, just like we're talking here, I pretty much live and breathe it nonstop, and nothing seems as important as this for some reason. I think because this is really about speaking to our human potential. And I think that this is really, this could make the difference of just how we move forward in life as a society if more and more people can get in touch with their true potential.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about within what you just said. Yeah, you know, I love what you say about being obsessed, because once you understand how to manage your clairvoyance and how to really turn it on and use it, I could spend hours, like you just spend hours like looking at stuff, you know, looking at visions and pictures and images and playing with like who's calling you on the phone and what the weather is going to be like and just all sorts of things. And it's such an incredible, it's like your own little world that you get to be in every day.
Yeah, you might notice I'm a little tired right now because I was up until about 3 a.m. just looking at stuff, laying in bed. And I have a client who lost a ring. Actually, her daughter was getting married and she was holding her ring for safekeeping. And then her husband put it somewhere, wrapped it in a tissue, and can't find it now. So I told her I would try to find it. So at 3 a.m., I'm just laying in bed awake and trying to tune into where it was. So I'm constantly working around the clock, and then I'm a little sleepy in the morning like this. But yeah, so much to look at. Just, you know, it's nice anytime you have a question about anything. And again, it's not that you're always going to get an answer or that you're always going to be able to tell the difference. Is this my logical mind or is this what I'm already thinking? Especially when it's something that's related to you or you already know a lot about the topic. But it's nice to have that ability to get those little glimpses or bits and pieces. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just a quick flash of something, and you find the object, or you give an answer to someone, or they give an answer to you, and it's pretty cool.
It's so cool. What was it that really led you to learning about all of this to begin with? I mean, what was your journey to that?
Well, I would say I've always had a really strong interest in this. I have an identical twin sister, and when we were younger, we would have really just a few years old, we would have different experiences together that we started to recognize early on as being psychic experiences. At least our mom would tell us that's what it was. And then we joined the Theosophical Society. My sister somehow got a subscription to the Theosophical Society, which was an early esoteric organization that was founded in the mid-1880s or so. And she was able to just get books sent to us when we were like 11 or 12 years old. And so we were reading Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, and books that were way over our heads. But every once in a while, there was a word in there that you could understand. So we started to meditate. That was one word that would come up a lot. And we started to meditate quite a bit. But the thing was, we didn't really feel like it was doing all that much for like teaching us exactly how to access our abilities. And then in a lot of these writings, you find they say, well, yes, you'll become just kind of more intuitive overall, but then they say that's not really the point of meditation. So they really would kind of discourage you. And so for a long time, I really felt like there was never a book that really gave specific techniques. I just couldn't find anything that would help me get control of these things. But every once in a while, I would just have a spontaneous experience. So even if my attention, you know, I went off to college or was working a lot, dating, all those distractions, I would kind of get away from this, and then I would have some kind of spontaneous experience, which would then remind me, okay, there's something going on here to pay attention to. And so, yeah, once I got into training, and then when I was done, I still felt like at the time there weren't too many books hardly any that gave you specific techniques. So that's what I wanted to be able to do. And, I think training, any kind of training that gets people together and practicing is great, but not everyone is going to be able to find their way into a training program. It's easier now with online programs. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years exclusively. And there's more and more people doing that now. Different clairvoyant institutes are also offering online training. But at the time, the only way to get training was to either live somewhere or move somewhere where they had a program, and it could be very expensive. And, it was just not possible for people with families and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into all this. And then at the time I was developing my abilities, I was also a federal probation officer. Yeah, and actually I was working out of the Oakland Federal Building, which I just heard was set on fire by protesters. So that's a little surreal, because I started, they had just built that building in Oakland maybe a year before I got there. And it was a nice building and really, for the most part, nice people in there. And so it's a little strange to see what's going on right now, though totally understand it. So yeah, and now I lost track of what we were talking about.
Well, no, it's totally okay. That's what happens when two psychics talk. We forget where we are.
Kind of float off somewhere into Neverland. But yeah, so at the time I was a probation officer, and I was very, very stressed out. My job was exciting and interesting, and I love my coworkers, but it was very, very stressful. And so I started to take meditation classes, and then I started to develop my clairvoyance. And then at that point, I just got to a place where I couldn't do that work anymore. I also got very much into healing, and went on a trip to the Philippines where I had several encounters with different faith healers, and just went through all kinds of changes. And when I got back, I was just sitting in my office one day, and I had all these files on my desk, and I had all these parolees I was supposed to meet with, and be in a position of controlling their lives. And I just one day sat there and I just said, I can't do this, and I need to be doing my spiritual work. And that seemed crazy, because at the time I was making more money than most 20-year-olds make. And it was very disappointing to my mother, that phone call, when I told her I'm leaving my secure job here, and I'm gonna really devote myself to my spiritual abilities. But and I didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. And it put me onto a whole path where I was broke for many years. But yeah, it was what I really needed to do. So in that period, I learned a lot about faith, and just going for your dreams. And I know that's something that you're very familiar with too. I can tell. And
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Like, you just give up the worldly stuff, you know. I joke about the fact that it's great I have a husband, because you just don't, it seems like there's all, you know, there's all this glory to it or something, but you know, the glory is the heart-centered work that you're doing, and you know what you're able to put out into the world, and like you said, to be immersed into spirit. And I remember that day too. I was in fashion for a long time, and I did go in and out, but I remember going through that clairvoyant training program, and I did walk out and walk away, same thing as you. Actually, I walked out of I was running a very high volume Victoria's Secret, of all things, you guys, like full on in the system. And it was probably the same as being a parole officer, and all our black suits and our red lipstick and everything. And I'd been there for a decade, and I just left. I was like, it's time for me to go and, you know, do this work and figure out, you know, what I'm supposed to do with all of this. And you know, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because it came up a few weeks ago, is this idea of, we were talking about, you know, protecting yourself, because right now the way things are in our world is a little stressful, to say the least, when you go outside of your home. And there was a conversation I had the other day with a client about psychic walls and shields and all these things. And one of the things that I really love about the clairvoyant work, and you speak directly to it, and both You Are Psychic and Extraordinary Psychic, is about roses and about protecting yourself in a way that is compassionate and loving, and not like blocking. And I just wanted you to speak to that a little bit and talk about what that is, because there's such a need to protect our energy fields right now, but how do we do it in a way that's supportive and nurturing? Because we have enough shields and masks and walls and blocks right now. We don't need more. So I just wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I look at protection or shielding more as setting boundaries, and it starts with knowing what your energy is like and where you are, and being centered in yourself first, because it's kind of like you can't even put anything up around you if you're not in with you. And a lot of people are not at all just with themselves. They're out with other people and other people's business, or just so focused on what's happening outside that they're all over the place. And so first it comes to getting back within yourself, being connected with yourself, knowing what your own baseline is as far as your own vibration. You know, what makes you feel good? When are you like in your groove and feeling like you're in yourself and it's just smooth sailing? And then how do you feel when you're off? And so just knowing those subtleties there, and sometimes it's you know, hard to know that, but starting with that, then you can start to just think of it like, okay, there's everything else around me. And then you could do different visualizations. So when a lot of times I have had clients where they either want to know like, well, why don't I have a relationship? Or there's something feels off in my life. And I take a look, and then I'll see all this protection around the person. And it like all at first, I don't know, it's protection. It just looks like some kind of thick energy. And I see it's a divide between them and other people. And then when I start to tune into it, like I might see one of their parents like praying for them, or like a very possessive father, or somebody who like is coming from a good place, a place of, I just want to protect this person. So I'll see other people's protection around them, or sometimes I see their own protection around them, and it's keeping people out. I had one student where he would put like he said he would put 50 angry wolves out in front of his aura to protect himself. And then he was wondering why people didn't want to have anything to do with them. You know, people, even though lots of people maybe the majority of people out there are saying like, oh, I'm not really psychic or don't know they are. We pick up on these things. So if you have, if people can't see you, because that one thing protection does is it makes you invisible. So, or a lot harder to notice. So people will just walk by you. They won't barely even be able to look at you if you have too much protection, or they might feel fearful. So I worked with him to remove his wolves and instead to just have another object out in front of him that, you know, maybe he could just have like, you know, a nicer dog or something, or a flower, or a smiley face or something, but where you can program these visualizations to let in positive energy, but to keep out negative energy. And so there's a lot of visualizations you can do like that, or, you know, have light around you, but not, the thing is the vibration you create it in is how you're gonna, is what you're going to be projecting out. So if you create protection out of fear, and let's say it's, even if, say you visualized a shield, you know, which can work, but if you created that shield out of fear, that's broadcasting fear. So either you're going to keep feeling fear because you just stuck fear, you know, it's kind of like taking something that smells bad and walking around with it. You're going to keep smelling it, and everyone else is. So you can put something else up there instead that is not going to scare people away, but is going to help with that boundary. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and some people who are really into energy work have, sometimes they forget this, is how much we still can do on a physical level, right? So protection isn't just sitting there visualizing. It's who are you living with? Who are you exposing yourself to? What are you exposing yourself to on, like, I'm sure you've noticed, like, if you turn on the TV and watch the news, like how long does it take for your own vibration to drop when you're watching the news?
Yeah.
Like I've been counting the minutes of how I feel the drop. And sometimes it's not even minutes. It's like within 30 seconds, suddenly I'm feeling irritable, frustrated. And, but you know, it is still all interesting and you like to know what's going on. And I have to say I'm a little addicted to the news at this point. So, you know, I'm aware of that, but it's bringing down my energy and I can feel it. So that's what we want people to do, is to know, if you know your baseline and then you know how you feel when you're exposed to something else, at least then you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think one of the things you're saying that I really want to like put a big star by is about the checking in and the noticing. And for everybody who's listening, I want to invite all of you guys who are watching. There's so many of you guys. Please ask questions. If you have questions about psychic development, clairvoyance, her books, anything for Debra, do it. I have you guys' chat box up. And hi, we've got hellos from the UK. We've got Ola coming up too. So thank you guys. But anyways, one of the things that you were saying here is about checking in. And this is something for everybody listening. Like, this is definitely a huge part of clairvoyant training and developing your psychic gifts that I think changed my life, and that's so important. And so I want to elaborate on that with you, is this idea of checking in, because before you learn any of this, and I'm sure you experienced this, Debra, it was like, you'd just be upset. Like, I will never forget going to the movie theater with my sister, and I was like 21, and I was like so anxious and uncomfortable, and there was nothing wrong. And I was like anxious and uncomfortable, and it just really bugged me. And that stuck out in my mind, because when I went through the clairvoyant training piece, and I remembered that time, I thought, oh my gosh, something was going on, and I didn't know to check in. And so when you talk about that, like checking in with your vibration, you know, that is that acknowledgement also of things in your life that are out of alignment. You know, we forget that that's a real thing to check in with yourself. And I just want to have you talk more about that if you have any more to say about it, because I think it's important to realize part of the development piece is actually learning about yourself and learning that not everything is you. I still use my little dial. I have a little submarine gauge. Why it's a submarine gauge, I don't know, because I've never been on one, but I have a submarine gauge. And I ask, like, how much of this that I'm feeling right now is me? And I still use that to this day, because most of the time it's not me at all, or it's like 20% me, and the rest of it is everything around me.
Well, can you share, when you were with your sister at the movie theater, what did you feel was the source of your anxiety? Did you find that out?
I did. So you want to know the crazy thing about this story was, it was really bothering me. I mean, I was like fidgeting in my seat. I couldn't really watch the movie. And at the end of the movie, you know, you leave the theater and everybody goes pee. I mean, that's basically what happens after a movie, if we even remember what that's like anymore. And so when I went to the bathroom, one of the girls that was sitting near us was crying in the bathroom. She was really upset. I don't even know what it was about, actually, at this point. I can't remember. But I remember being in the bathroom thinking, was I feeling that girl? Like, was that what was happening? So yeah, it was actually this person that was just near me who was really, really upset.
Yeah, that's so cool, because I have had movie theater experiences sitting next to my sister as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's so funny. Yeah, around the same age. And I remember too, like feeling like anxious, and then I started to feel angry, and like almost so much like I couldn't just sit there in my seat. And then it turned out it was my sister. She was going through a lot, and I'm very susceptible to whatever she's experiencing. And so two stories come to mind. One is, I was at I think it was the Conscious Life Expo many years ago. And I was actually in a crop circles workshop with I think his name is Colin Andrews, who it goes back as one of the first crop circle researchers. And the room was really full of people, and I'm sitting there and I had been totally fine. And suddenly I felt so tired. I felt so exhausted, like I was just going to keel over. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I felt someone standing next to me, and I looked up, and there's this guy, like there weren't enough chairs, and he was standing up. And I thought, wow, is it possible that I could be feeling him? So, because at that point I just started to learn how I recognize how I would sometimes feel like people's emotions, but I didn't realize that you could also feel their body sensations. So I decided I would get up, like let him have my chair, and I'd go across the room. So I went all the way across the room. I'm listening to the lecture, and then suddenly I feel it again. And I'm like, oh, well, I must have been totally wrong about that. But then I looked up, and there he was again, and he was standing, he had walked over to where I was. And I mean, I don't know if it was he intentionally came there or just happened to be there, but somehow he's standing right next to me again. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and so whether he was just really tired and I was feeling it, or maybe there was a reason he was, he was thinking about me, and that made it more so. So I know for people that are new to this, they might just be thinking, oh, you guys are crazy. But once you just even start entertaining this, now I am not suggesting, and I'm sure you're not either, that like we don't want people to just blame everybody for their own body sensations all the time, right? Like you have to do some investigations, just have an open mind, like, okay, is this me or is this someone else? And then I'm going to just kind of see what happens next. And a lot of times, I'm sure you found this, like once you even ask that question or find the source, it just seems to go away. Like that, it just seems to dissipate, even asking that. But we don't want to just make those assumptions across the board. And then I had another experience my son was in a robotics competition, and he had already gone there with his friends. And I was driving to the school where it was at, and I started having all these thoughts about like kids being like kidnapped, and just going through these scenarios in my mind. And at one point, I'm thinking of all these movies, and I was like, why would I be thinking about this right now? That's kind of weird. And then I got into the competition, the room where they were fighting the robots. And I'm sitting there, and I started to feel more and more anxious. And I started to like think, oh no, is there somebody here who might want to hurt a child? Because I was having this scenario run through my mind, and I'm feeling like worse and worse. And I started almost having a panic attack, which is not like me whatsoever. And so I called up one of my friends, and she was like, well, what's your sister doing right now? And I was like, oh, good idea. So I texted my sister, and I'm like, what are you doing right now? And she calls me back, and she says that for the last hour and a half, she's been at a workshop where she was paired off with a woman where they were doing some kind of work together. And the woman had, when she was a teenager, she was kidnapped for 9 months and tortured. And they were having this intensive session talking about it. And she said she kept telling her partner there that she should get in touch with me, her sister, and read my books. So as soon as she told me this, I was totally fine. But this was such an intensive experience for me, because I really, on every level, the images coming in, the feelings, yeah. And so that taught me too, that even in recognizing that we can feel other people's emotions and pick up their thoughts, that even in recognizing that, sometimes we still can't control it when it's really intensive. And I've looked to see, well, why was it so strong then? And I'm thinking it was because I was in a crowded room. There was a lot going on. I didn't have a chance to really just, go in and meditate. And I was in a place that matched, other kids that matched what was going on with her.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing, isn't it? How you pick up. And I find, I don't know if you have this experience, but I find that happens with my clients too, especially clients I've had for a really long time. Like all of a sudden I'll be feeling something, and then I'll hear from one of my clients that wants a session or something. And it's like, oh, you're the reason I've been feeling this way all day. And I wanted to ask you about, I made a little note here about moving from feeling to seeing. Because I think one of the interesting things, and I wanted to ask you, I was actually curious about this, one of the learnings is to close down those lower energy centers and open up the upper energy centers, back when I took all those classes. And I don't know that I do that anymore. I was curious what you thought about that. Like, what's your thought now? And secondarily, talking about going from feeling to seeing, because I think once, I'm naturally clairvoyant. So that was something that just happened in my life. I could just easily see things, but I also felt everything. And so it was a real training. Like when you talk about training, like I always tell everyone, we have muscles, but we're not all triathletes. And it's the same thing with your pineal gland and pituitary. Like it's training these muscles, these psychic muscles to work. And once you get those to work, I found that some of the feeling stuff like subsided. It's still there, it still happens, but it's easier to feel it and go, wait, I just need to see what's happening here. I don't need you to do all this to my body. So that's like a bunch of questions at once, but.
Yeah, well, okay. So first, with energy level, I do find it's helpful to bring my energy up to my upper chakras. I'm not necessarily, well, I would say I think of it like I am closing my lower chakras a little bit, but it's almost more important just to lift the energy up and to be focused here. And I've done some experiments like with myself and my students where we would do readings from different chakras. Like, okay, we're all going to be together and read from our third chakra or read from our second chakra. And then upper ones. And what we found was that we still could read in it from any chakra, but when we came up here, there was more visuals, and it does seem like there's more neutrality, not getting so sucked into emotions. So I do find a difference when, and it's not that I always stay there. I'll drop down, my students will, and then, but when we come up, I do notice a difference. And even, if let's say I say, well, I just want some just instant knowings here. I got to grab this information really fast, whatever situation I'm in. I'll do this when I'm teaching, or even I've been going through a PhD program, just finished up my classes recently. But when I was in class, sometimes they would assign us so much reading. I mean, crazy, like between all your classes, it's like 20 books a week. Like who can read even one book a week? So I would use my psychic abilities in class to answer questions and make it look like I had read something. So for that, if I wanted a quick answer and I'm sitting there with, I'm not going to close my eyes. So I would bring myself to my crown chakra and just be like, think of my crown chakra being open and just let the information come in really quick. And then I could usually grab some information right there. So depending on where you are, I do feel like it can help. And then I'll have a sense that some of my students, like, they just have a hard time getting out of some of their lower chakras. And so then they tend to be more emotional or have a little harder time like assessing what's going on during the process. And then your next question was about moving from feeling to seeing. And that's the thing. I'm sure you come across like a lot of people who say they're naturally empathic. So just like we've been talking about, feeling everything. And some people think, well, that's all they are, because they just haven't done the exercises or techniques to see that they can actually get visuals. So like you said, you just naturally are seeing things all the time. I really wasn't. I had only had a couple times where I would say like, oh, I just had a strong visual or a vision just spontaneously. So that's why I love these techniques, because now, I have no doubt that I'll have image after image after image. Now they're not that clear or always clearer, they're quick flashes, just quick bursts, but people don't know until they try, and then they see it's very similar. And so what I usually do, like I'll teach 12-week classes, and the first 4 weeks or so, it's just heavy duty visualizations, not trying to be psychic or anything like that. It's just the visual exercises. Just like you said, it is a muscle, and a lot of people just haven't done that much visualization, maybe once in a while. But so we want people to be visualizing nonstop. And so for people listening right now, like that's, would be the first step. It's so easy to visualize, just and one of the techniques that both of Lisa and myself have learned is both that it's important to create images and then be able to let go of them, whether you call that destroying or evaporating, but you don't want to keep all your images there. And there's also something powerful that happens when you see movement with your images. So you could see a flower and then explode it. I like to use all different kinds of images, like run through the whole vegetable family, run through the whole fruit family, trees, anything you could visualize, and then see it explode. And you could go through numbers and letters and visualize your own life, visualize scenes from your life of what you would like to achieve. So this really gets into manifesting too. You can spend time just visualizing what you would like for yourself, but just get into the habit. Even when you talk, like you can start seeing pictures, like as if you were telling a story and you were going to be coloring it or drawing it. You can force yourself to do that. And again, the important thing is to not have these false ideas of perfectionism, like, oh, I can't visualize well. However you think people visualize, most don't. Most visualize just like everyone out there, just where sometimes you barely think you saw it. You know, if you say, I want to see a color, it's not that your whole field of vision is going to always be filled with like a, you know, bold, clear color, but you might be able to just get a little bit of a flash of color. And if that happens, then just, you know, just go with it. The important thing is just to keep doing it. And I have no doubt if all the people watching do that for a week, you're going to start to notice a difference.
I agree. And that's a good segue to a whole other 2-part long question I have, which is, so your book is called You Are Psychic. And I think I'm going to guess that you're a lot like me, in which you believe everyone is psychic. And I'm always telling everyone, you guys, you're psychic, everyone. It's not a special secret thing, like it's everyone. And so I want to hear your thoughts on that, and why you called your book that even. But I also, the second parter to that is this world we're living in, and we're headed to the new reality. And there's this whole conversation about going, you know, we're talking about 1111D here on Buddhist Biohacker, but there's a lot of talk obviously of moving into a 5D reality. And so a big part of that I've seen when I've looked at it clairvoyantly is that everyone, you know, the majority is using their psychic gifts, their inherent gifts and talents, using their clairvoyance, all the clear senses, really coming alive for people over this next decade. And that we're not the minority. And actually what I'm discovering by doing this show is we actually aren't the minority now. We thought we were told we were. Oh, that's the crazy psychic girl, but no, actually it's all of us anyways. But anyway, so I just want your thoughts on all of that, on the You Are Psychic piece, but also about what you're seeing like for all of us with our psychic gifts as we go forward.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm also really noticing a difference and it's so exciting. You know, it in some ways it's a little, you know, sometimes it's a little hard getting older, but on the other hand, it's so exciting because you have this longer term perspective, obviously, to see the changes. And we are seeing the changes, like you say, and it was different when I first went out there as a clairvoyant. And you know, that was the thing when I went through my clairvoyant training at the Berkeley Psychic Institute. I mean, there was so much I loved there. And then, but one of the things that wasn't so good was they didn't talk in those days. Maybe it's, I know it's totally different people there now, but in those days, they never encouraged you to leave the school. They never encouraged you to go out on your own as a psychic. In fact, they would tell you, you know, it's scary out there. This is one of the few places that you're going to find other psychics. And if you go out on your own, you're just going to be alone in an ungrounded world of, you know, people who are doubters, people who are skeptics, people who are religious fanatics who think you're doing the work of the devil. And I'm not going to say that all of that is, there's still, you know, plenty of that as well. But so at that time I was really scared and I was worried that I was going to be just alone, you know, but I knew I had to go out on my own because I wasn't meant to, you know, stay just in this, you know, institute for the rest of my life with people that didn't really have a whole lot of life experience. And I found right away that, you know, with manifesting abilities, just putting it out there, you know, okay, I'm the only one here that I know of besides from my sister, but I'm just going to keep setting my intention that I'm going to meet other people like me and I'm going to visualize that I am. And, you know, sure enough, I would just suddenly discover that someone who had been my neighbor for my whole life, you know, 3 houses down the street was totally into this stuff. And for all that time, didn't know about it until just said, okay, I want to be surrounded by people like this. And so it's like literally people were coming out of the woodwork who are already there for the most part, or maybe someone would move into the area. Or then like I found myself, I moved to Sedona, Arizona, where it was, one of the highest populations of psychics and healers and mystics. And so, I truly believe that we become attracted. Our bodies move to where the people are that we want to be. Like we will find our tribe, we'll find the people we're meant to connect with. And that's, yeah. So that's really cool. But then, yes, overall, I would say the whole population, so much of the population is changing. And you could just look at the books and the TV shows and the YouTube videos. Now if I say like, oh, well, there were no books that talked about techniques, my book was the only one. Well, people will get mad at me because they're like, no, that's not true. Your book's not the only one. Like, I could spot off like 25 other books that give techniques now, and not just about, there's just maybe a couple others with clairvoyance, but now there's mediumship and healing and so many, a lot. These are recent developments. The number of resources has just exploded, and that's a reflection of what's really going on in our society. So there's just so much more information out there. And yeah. Now then what was your other question?
Well, my other question is about our new reality, but I want to interject a fun story. So when you're talking about, I just want to affirm what you're saying about you're finding your tribe. First off, it's happened like on YouTube. Who knew we'd all love to be on YouTube? And it's like the light workers are infiltrating YouTube, and it's awesome. And there are so many great channels blossoming, and all of us are helping each other, and it's great. But I remember I was late 20s. This was probably a year or two before I left Victoria's Secret. And it's my favorite story because I was a new store director. I had a big store. I had to go to a conference in Orlando, Florida for like all the store directors. And we all had to have roommates. And so we were all within our little district, in our state. And I was roomed with this woman I didn't know. She was older than me. I wasn't sure. I was all nervous, And so, we got to Orlando, we met, and it's like, okay, she seems nice, it's all fine. So the day went on and we're in meetings. And then after dinner, we went back to the room, and it was like kind of the time to wind down. And she said to me, she goes, "There's something about you." She goes, "Do you know what a grounding cord is?" I was like, oh my God, I totally do. And we didn't sleep. Like, I will never forget this. The next morning, we didn't sleep at all. We spent the whole night just talking about our clairvoyance and our love of all the psychic things and just all these things. And it was just like, oh my God, we were so bonded together. And this time, this person I didn't even know, who's part of this system and construct that neither of us really wanted, didn't really believe in anymore. And I remember the next morning we went to breakfast and we were like zombies. Like, we were not able to function. And our district manager was so funny because she's like, "What'd you guys do?" We're like, "We can't even go into it." Like, we were just up real quick. But it's amazing what you say. Like, it comes in the weirdest places. And she and I have been friends now. It's been 20 some years, and
Wow.
we still love each other, and we still, connect with each other and practice our clairvoyant techniques. And so anyways, I just wanted to iterate that story because it's fun.
So
like
cool.
you said, like you find these people and it's like, well, where'd you come from? Like, I didn't know you thought this. Like,
yeah, just what are the chances that the two of you would come together? And that's why it wasn't really chance at all, right? It was like something within you and her that were meant to come together like that.
absolutely.
And it's funny that you are, let me show you one thing real quick here.
Oh, I'm excited.
This just came in the mail yesterday. And I ordered some new bras and from a couple different companies. And I have to say, like, this, even through the plastic, it is just so cushy. Like, there's nothing like Victoria's Secret's bras, but it's nice to be able to shop online because I I always hated to go into the fitting rooms and just deal with all that. So, but I couldn't be happier.
Oh
So
my gosh, I
isn't
love
that
it. Yeah,
funny
I'm
that I
still
would have,
pretty,
and
that
it's
is
still in
funny.
the package.
That's so funny. I love it because I'm still like, right or wrong, not sustainable or whatever, but I still love them too. And I was with them for 10 years and it's kind of funny. It's like being in a cult, like truly, like, cause you really are like, it's a very focused space. And I wanted to be there because you learn about business and things. But what I saw in that time is I was there to help all these women. I mean, I had women who would break down in the fitting room crying because they were upset about their body image. And I had women who just had surgery that went through breast cancer that needed support. And, all the young girls that worked for me. I mean, at one point I had over 100 employees at my store, and it was all young girls who would cry about their boyfriends in my office. And, really, I was a psychic reader for 10 years, you guys. I mean, that's truly what I was doing. And so I always tell everyone, no matter what job you're doing, you're still a light worker, you're still a healer, you're still a psychic, you're giving service in whatever way you're meant to give service at that time. And so as crazy as that time was, and after I left and my whole closet was all black suits, and I was like, bye-bye. So now everything's color. Ever since that day I walked out that door. But I never would have walked out that door had I not done the clairvoyant program and really understood like there's so much more out there for me to do. And I love, one of the things that you talk about in your books and you said here in this interview is it's like doing your little work. It's like you've got to go in and like explore and investigate. And if you approach it from that curiosity of like, well, what is this all about? That is what releases the ego. It releases the stress, like, because it's stressful when you're reading people like, what if you're wrong? And you go through that whole journey, which I'm sure we did at the beginning of, way back now. But, to this day, I always just am kind of like, okay, I'm going in, going to see what's up. Let's see what's happening. And if you look at it that way, it becomes like this, like you said, you become obsessed because it's so joyful. And it's like, oh, what am I going to see now? And, what's going to happen this time? And it's just really a fun, I don't know, it's just fun. Like I especially love, I mean, I'm biased to Extraordinary Psychic because I just love it so much. There's so many little things in there that just, oh my gosh, they just feed my soul. But I have it like on my iPad right here, and I will go out to the park with the kids and I'll sit at the park and open that up and say, okay, what activity should I do? Because they're just so great to go back to. So that's a whole lot of talking, but I wanted to ask about our new reality, if that, whatever, wherever we're headed, because you had to have looked at it, and I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are about like where we're headed, what you're feeling, what you're seeing and experiencing, and no real specific thing, just what your thoughts are.
Well, first, can you just tell me, I'm just stuck on this question. So did you have to wear black suits at Victoria's Secret,
Yes.
or did you just want to wear?
No, we did. We had to wear black suits. And actually back when I was there, so now it's different and I don't even quite know what they do now, but back in the day, we had to wear black suits with white collared shirts or a corset if it was from the store, and matching red lipstick. No joke. We had to all wear matching red lipstick. So it was a very specific, it was a very regimented expectation they had for the brand back then. And I'm sure it's similar, but it seems like it's changed for sure. I think they all still wear black, but yeah. So my whole closet, in fact, I had a reading with you when I changed my life. And I had read your books and I was like, I'm getting this reading, I'm doing it. And I had a reading with you. So this was probably 2008. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago. This dating us both. But 2008, and my whole I'll never forget, my whole closet was like all black suits because we had to wear it. And so I remember walking into my closet and thinking, it was like an awakening. It was like that awakening moment where you're like, this is not okay. Like, I don't have anything, no color at all, nothing. And so I left, I got rid of all of them. And I don't have I hardly have anything black. I think I have like a couple black t-shirts because I just refuse. I have yellows and pinks and blues, and I just won't do it again.
Yeah, that's fun. When I was a probation officer, I had to wear suits too, but I got around that by I was able to wear whatever color. So I remember my first suits I had ever gotten in my life. They were silk suits, and one was bright pink and one was bright turquoise. And then I would wear sparkly nail polish. And I remember I went in. My boss was the assistant chief probation officer, and one day I was in his office and he was just like shaking his head and looking at me, and I'm like, what? And he's like, you know, your nail polish is very pretty, but do you really think that's professional? I was like, you know what? That's me. And you know, it would make me feel good. But yeah, I would also at some point, it was interesting because I got to wear the clothes that I really loved, the colors, but I would sometimes have this feeling like I wasn't being me at work. Like and I think of it like I had to check my true self in at the door, or I had to leave my true self at the car. And then I could kind of be me like when I went to lunch or if someone came into my office for a break. But otherwise, there was this weird feeling of, and I think it was that conforming, you know, like you can't be too happy or you can't be too just silly or yourself. You have to fit in with everything else. So it's almost like you start to vibrate like the walls and the, you know, and there's a corporate vibe. Like we could give names to different vibes, a corporate vibe or a government vibe, and it's serious. So yeah, it's so nice that we can just, you know, even just like, I know I totally didn't answer your question and
Oh,
just
it's
went off on
okay.
this
Because now I want to
tangent, but
say more about what you're saying, so it's okay.
just to have the freedom to, you know, even here, this is great because I wouldn't normally, you know, just talk about bras or whatever, but you know, why not? Why can't we just talk about what we want to talk about in the moment?
I agree. And yeah, there is a vibe for sure. And Victoria's Secret had their vibe, and I was hooked on it. But there were these moments, it was kind of weird. I always think, and I just talked about this a few weeks ago on a feminine roundtable about the divine feminine, about being the little witch in my cottage. And that was what the fitting rooms were. It was a weird thing. Like I would be like in my like corporate business, whatever. And then I'd get in a fitting room with somebody and it was obvious to me, I was feeling the upset, and I would just ask a simple question, you know, or really look at them and say, you know, are you okay? And it was just like, and then all of a sudden I was, you know, sharing my insight and talking to them, and was in a completely different space. And it was the same thing with my employees. You know, they would come into my office and be so upset, and I'd be like, whoa, like, what's your story? Like, calm down. And I think to this day, I've had so many employees that followed me everywhere through that time period in fashion. And I think they would all say the same thing. It's because I was organized, but it was also because they knew that they had support. And I think that it's kind of cool that I'm doing the same things now, but I can wear what I want to, like you said, and be out of that construct where, and it's a blessing really. And I think it's part of, and this we can segue into like where we're headed, which is, I think we're headed into a place with the virtual energy and working from home and working for ourselves, like this idea of self-governance and self-responsibility. Like we're in a place where we can't, like, it's okay, you guys, like you can wear what you want to, you can figure out who you are. Like even to say, oh, I'm a starseed and a psychic and all these things, and I channel these beings. Like 10 years ago, even, I don't think I would have said that on a YouTube channel. So to say that today, it's like, whoo, there's all this freedom. Where'd this come from, you know? And so
Yeah.
that goes back to the new reality. Like this is where we're already there, really. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on where we're headed and what you're thinking and feeling about everything and what you've seen.
Yeah, and I have to show you this too, since you mentioned star seeds, and my husband just left the room, so he's not gonna roll his eyes at me. But so I got these socks at a MUFON conference, and I've been waiting for a special occasion to wear them, and I just am wearing them now. So, and
Love it.
I thought I was going to show them to you at the start of our interview, and then I thought, no, you know, if anyone knows me from like different communities, because I'm also like part of the remote viewing community, which has a history ingrained in with the military remote viewers.
Yeah.
and like that whole group of people, which I love. Like I have so many friends in that community, and that's where I do my research. But it's also comes from such, they'd never show their bras on camera or, talk about their clothing or talk about energy and stuff like that. So, that's not really considered academic or professional. So it's funny because even though I'm talking about this, I'm realizing like, yeah, like in this whole realm, I have to be so careful so I don't upset they're psychics, but they're totally, not, at least on the surface, or publicly into the spiritual, although they're all interested in UFOs and things like that. They just don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting to your question of the future. Well, I love what you said of self-governing and the idea, like, yeah, why do people have to, especially let's say the people that are phone support, or, there's millions of people who have jobs where they're talking on the phone all day long. Why do they have to get up at 6 a.m., get dressed, drive across town, 3 hours later, they get to the office, they work for 8 hours, they drive home again, and all to sit on a telephone, or sit on their computer. Why do they need to do that instead of just working out of their house? So, I've been teaching online for 15 years. I've been, just like yourself, I'm sure, don't you do almost all your readings
Everything's
over the phone?
remote. The team said go remote last year, and I thought, well, and I'd always done, like, back when the phone was plugged into the wall. I mean, I'd say probably most of my clients are out of state, but I had an office, and they were like, close it down, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? Well, now we know, but at the time I was like, okay, I will, but I don't know why I'm doing that.
That was good timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be terrific someday where we could, occasionally get back with people face to face. But when we're doing readings, we're usually closing our eyes anyway. Like I don't know if you're like this, but I like to just have my eyes closed. I don't want visual cues. Like we'll get onto Zoom and I'll tell people, oh, let's not have our cameras on because I don't want those visual distractions and don't need it. So it really, to do psychic work, it's perfect. Healing work too can really be done at a distance, although there's some healing, obviously, like hands-on or aura healings are not, you're not able to do those at a distance, but you can do other kinds of healing where people can actually feel it. And you can feel the energy exchange there as well. So but even just any kind of job, so I've been saying for a long time, like, people need to switch over to some of these conveniences, and it's exciting to see that now I think that something major had to happen in order for people to see that there could be a different way of conducting themselves. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm not just saying like, oh, all of life should just go online, but just the way that we're doing things and what we value, and is it this thing about like, oh, in some states, like we need to keep the bars open, we need to keep, why are bars the place where people have to gather? I think we haven't even found where people can be gathering, but and when you ask, like, what do I see for the future? Honestly, I haven't really looked too much into the future. I'm just more focused on everything getting jumbled up right now. And I think that as upsetting as everything is, and I do think that I think that we're headed through some exciting times. I am also worried because I do feel like there's some negative forces out there, and we're kind of in a fight for good and evil. I don't know if you want to go there, but
we're allowed in here to do that, and I get it.
Yeah, but I think that sometimes in our individual lives, we're not gonna make changes unless we're forced to. And that's what we're seeing in society right now. And this is putting us in such new directions, what's going on right now. And, you know, there's, to me, what's coming even as I'm talking is that we could do it gracefully and smoothly, or we could do it chaotically. And it's kind of chaotic right now for, you know, socially, culturally, it's happening chaotically. It doesn't have to be that way. So I think that I just get this sense of just such huge forces pulling us in a direction, and the choice there is how we all handle it. And, you know, we do at least have the choice in our personal lives. And the other thing is, it's so interesting to me is how different our experiences are right now. And so my twin sister has been in Portland all week, and she's a part-time photojournalist. So she's been getting tear gassed all week by unidentified agents that like, she's not even near the federal building, and she just gets out of her car and she's tear gassed, or she goes to see if she could ask them a question and they shoot her with rubber bullets. And she has pictures of women where their bodies are covered in bruises. So she is choosing, she doesn't live in Portland. She chose to go there and be involved in all of that to try to help out. And, you know, that's like her existence. My existence is, we're actually a few hours from Portland near the coast, and we live on a river, and we only have 10 people that live on our street, and then no one for miles and miles. So I'm just in the wilderness looking at the water all day long and going out once every few weeks or so to get supplies. So and picking fruit and growing vegetables. So that's my existence right now. And some people don't quite have that choice because they already live in the middle of a city or in an apartment building. But it's just, we're living such different existences, even right in the moment. And then we're all trying to communicate and get along, but our perspectives are so different from each other. And you know, I think there's a lot of it gets back to kind of your question at the beginning about like, how do we protect ourselves? I think it's, you know, looking at, okay, well, what is my reality right now? And also how, you know, it's always interesting to me, like when a lot of times if someone like loses their job, if you start to talk to them, they wanted a break from work for a long time before that, right? Like, they may be really upset that they lost their job and they're totally in fear, but a lot of times they were saying, oh, I needed a break. So looking at how does this time serve us right now is, you know, that's where we're going to feel more empowered and less victimized. And what can people have time right now? Like, so many people have time to do all the creative projects they said they've been wanting to do, but didn't get to do, and or didn't have time for. But then they start to say, well, but I'm so distracted right now, it's hard to do that. And it's like, no, people, the thing is, we need to be disciplined right now. And that's the thing. Because like, have you been finding yourself like just being way distracted? I know so many people are so distracted right now.
Yeah, it's been an interesting, you know, journey, because I think it started out like, because this whole thing I've been through it all. I think I would say I've been distracted and I've been focused. I've been both. And my husband's been both. He's gone through a massive awakening in the last 6 weeks. So he's like showing me stuff that I didn't even know. Like, we're like activating each other. So it's like been an amazing, amazing thing for our family, actually, in that respect. But yeah, I went through that period where first it was like, oh, well, I work from home and I do my thing at home, and didn't even feel like anything was different for really the first half. And then I got very, very focused with the spiritual work and doing the global healing summits and doing this show. And it was just like work, 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 work. And then I went through that, whoa, squirrel kind of distracted moment where it's like, what is going on? Like, I don't really watch TV or read the news. My husband kind of gives me, we got a nice little system. He kind of tells me what's up. But I definitely went through last month, a couple weeks where it was like, I looked at it. And as soon as you look, it's like, what, like all this stuff and the energy, the dark, dirty energy, and then like the light energy, and like everything's all, it's very complex. Everything is all mixed together and tangled. It's like a big tangled knot of stuff. So yeah, like everything you're saying, I'm like right there with you, that split reality. Like I'm seeing some people having like really challenging times and confused and worried. And I have other people who are like, I'm living the time of my life. So I love what you said about and I'm scattered even answering your question, but like, I love what you said about like, you can be easeful with grace, or it can be complicated and you can fight the fight. And I think like it's about our divine authority, it's about sovereignty, and that comes with that self-governance of the only way to opt out of negative energy is to opt out of it, like, and not engage it. And I'm seeing even on social media, the engagement, like part of Buddhist Biohacker, I took a stand. I had a lucid dream experience with Gandhi. And after that, it was like, we're taking a stand against violence. Like we are about nonviolence. And I'm seeing like, even on social media, people that I care about, like being so violent with their words and their comments and things against everyone and who's right and who's wrong. And not really understanding that it's really like not about right or wrong. It's about unification and that coming together. And so when you talk about easeful, like that's what I think about. So that was a very like convoluted answer, but yes, I've been distracted. I've been focused. I went through the period where I was doing yoga like 2 hours a day and like super focused and taking care of the kids, like doing this stuff. And then there's other times where it's like, I got to a point where I finally was like, I have to come out of this. I cannot look at this media stuff anymore. I cannot engage in this because the energy is so like, it just activates so many of those programs that you're talking about. Like when you blow a program and it's like so many of those pictures that we've blown, like they come back when you see all that stuff. So
yeah, it's tough. And this whole, it's about dividing people already. I think that's the problem. And then on social media, it would be one thing if someone expresses how they feel and then everyone's respectful around that. But then there's people that they want to label and name call, like, oh, those leftists out there, or those, it's labeling people, and then it's just kind of like calling them names. So yeah, it's tricky because you want to stay connected and informed, but yeah, so I think that right now it's very helpful just to remind people to stay focused on their goals. That's what I find helps me, especially when things start to feel, so confusing, or I feel kind of sad because, I have friends even nearby. I moved to Oregon and I have a good friend who lives like an hour away, and we're just really trying to social distance. So, it's sad to not be with people, but then I think, okay, well, during this time that I can't have that, what can I be accomplishing? Because if I can accomplish things now, then, later on I'll have more time to socialize and enjoy things. So just, that's something I know helps me a lot, like just write down what did I want to achieve and, really try to get to that. Even if it's just like, okay, I'm going to write a paragraph, today, or I'm just going to do a little bit, but just like asking every day. And like you said, you're doing yoga for, 2 hours, and that's great. I mean, I think that we need to keep up our physical bodies. And that's the thing, like, it gets back to like what supports us energetically. And if we don't have physical health, then we are not going to have energetic health. We're not going to be mentally healthy. So what are we doing to exercise? And I've been like just having a hard time exercising for a while, and getting myself to do it. And that's the thing. I think when you do so much psychic work, it's really easy to get very lethargic, especially if you do psychic work, you're writing, you're, on your computer. But I'm just seeing like how much better I feel when I'm working my body, and we need to keep our bodies strong, and we need to stay really physically healthy. And I know too many psychics and energy workers where they forget about the body. It's just so much. And of course, then there's people that are only focused on the body, and they're forgetting about the spirit, or just the energetic health maintenance. So it really is about those two together and staying in balance with those.
I agree. You have to do both. And I find for me, you're right. Like when you're really working, working with clients, doing psychic work, and then you're writing, and I'm channeling, and, even these conversations are very intuitive, right? So like all of these things, you get to the end of the day and it's like, that's the last thing I want to do. And I found for me that my body ends up craving it. It's like, I've come to love yoga, and I'm not a like power vinyasa girl. I've developed my own practice that's really about moving energy. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's like, I have to move this energy out physically. I cannot just, it's like you do the visualizations and the movements at the same time. Because for me, it's like, because it's real easy. I've gone through it this last month. I mean, I've not done yoga at all. I've just been sitting, and I can feel my body, like the energy saying like, you've got to move around. Like you can't sit anymore, because it's so easy to get stuck in that, and it's having the balance. And I think it's a poignant time for you to be on the show, because I think, and I want to give you space to kind of talk about what you offer, because I know it's a lot of different things, but these books alone, they're very accessible, and it's important work right now. Like developing your psychic gifts while you're sitting at home, go sit outside and get your bare feet on the earth and learn how to build a grounding cord. Like this is the stuff that we need to do right now so that you can manage. It's like it's a navigation tool for this time period where there is a split, and I think it's going to get bigger before it comes together, and it's going to be tumultuous if you don't have the tools, I feel. And I want to share, we've got some comments and things. So we have Marlena said, hi from the Bahamas. Your books were two of the first ones I got when I started working on psychic development at 16. So that's awesome. She's got lots of hearts. And then Eve was asking, what would you recommend is the best place to learn more about remote viewing? And then she wrote, I just went to your website and see you teach remote viewing. And I think that'd be an interesting show all in of itself, because I think remote viewing is fascinating. I've worked on it just on my own, and interesting. And then, and then they're talking about the new financial system. Somebody's asking. I don't know if we want to get into that today, but anyways, so yeah, I think remote viewing is fascinating, and I think we should talk about that in like a whole separate show if you're open to it, because I think it's interesting or peculiar or curious that Stranger Things came out, and it was all about that kind of stuff in its own weird way. I only watched the first couple episodes because it was too dark for me, and I just couldn't handle the energy of it. But there's a lot of interesting. I just listened to a podcast, and her name's Annie, and I cannot remember her last name, but she was talking about, she's written several books about remote viewing and about how all of that was. So that's like a whole other topic. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's Andy Jacobson. I think
that sounds right.
Yeah.
And she talks about aliens and remote viewing and all those. I mean, we could have a whole other, so we'll plan on that, you guys. So don't worry.
There's so much there, but I can just for the person that asked the question, you can check out my website and at DebraKatz.com. I have some information up there, but then there's so many remote viewing books. There's like 100, and go for the books from, I would say like Mind Reach by Russell Targ or Harold Pudoff is a great place to start. Any of Ingo Swann's books, Lynn Buchanan's books, David Morehouse, The Psychic Warrior, I love, John Knowles, Lori Williams, those are some of the authors who are Paul Smith. I know all these people now, and their books are great. Daz Smith. So just look up some of those books. But I love The Psychic Warrior. That was my very first remote viewing book I ever read, and it really inspires the imagination to let you know like what you can experience when you're remote viewing. So I think that's a good one to start with, and then to learn about the research end of things. As well, I still, even though Mind Reach was written in the, I think, early 1980s, it's a good one to start off with as well. Oh, and the International Remote Viewing Association, I'm on their board of directors, and they have a website and a very inexpensive membership, and you can learn a lot about remote viewing. So check that out too. IRVA.org, IRVA.org.
Oh, that's awesome. And I took notes, so I'll make sure to get the books in the show notes too, guys, because I might be doing that too. I find it fascinating. I played around with it. I think you talk about it in one of the books, don't you?
Yeah, I have a chapter or two in An Extraordinary Psychic.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, still obviously like involving your clairvoyance and related, and it's psychic work, but it's done it's for a different purpose rather than reading people. It's for tuning into locations or objects or finding things. And there's a lot of crossover, but there's some big differences. It's a whole other set of tools and techniques. And again, it's really it's coming from more of the scientific arena, because that's where it was born out of. So like our clairvoyant heritage was birthed out of a spiritual discipline or framework, and then remote viewing came out of a scientific one. And there's intersecting points, but the communities are different, the people are different that are involved in each. And so some people will only want to be in one realm, some only in the other, and then some can kind of cross over between both worlds. But it's just adding more tools and approaches to your psychic tool bag. So it's pretty cool.
I love it. You know what? This gives me an idea. So we have Sean McNamara on in a couple months, and he wrote a book called Renegade Mystic. And Sean, one of the things that he does is remote viewing, and his group as an activity won the lottery 3 times, the pick 3 lottery 3 times from remote viewing. And maybe we can get you and him and whoever else we feel like together and talk about it, because it's fascinating and it's fun. I think. I mean, it's fun, but there's a lot to it, and I think it'd be fun to talk about. So yeah. I want to give you space, Debra. I want to give you some space to talk about how people get a hold of you, what all you offer, because you have so many different things that are accessible. And I want everybody to know, because again, it's about resources, you guys, and it's about getting in here. And we have our little monthly kind of Lightworker book club. And so maybe we'll get these books in this fall so that we can all dig in together and practice the activities. Because I think it's fun to do that and then share like on our little groups, like what we're doing and what we're learning. And anyways, share everything you have going on right now.
Okay, sure. I never want to take up too much time, just talking about what I'm doing, but I do. So I run the International School of Clairvoyance. And so I offer a number of 12-week classes. So there's the clairvoyant classes where you'll learn how to read and heal people and use the tools that we've been talking about. And I have my next semester of classes starts in end of next month or in September, so over the next couple months. So there's a clairvoyant class, there's a 12-week mediumship class, and there's a 12-week remote viewing class. And these are all online. I try to have them at a time where it'll work for the majority of people around the world. And not, sometimes it's hard to accommodate the people in Australia. So they end up taking the classes at like someone's motivated if they're willing to show up for class at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Really, no, not everyone can deal with that. But so I have students from just about every region of the world, and Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, South America right now, so all over. And yeah, so you can check out my website with the classes. And then with the classes, we offer practice groups. So there's different times of the week where people can come in and just practice with each other. And then I offer clairvoyant readings. I don't have a lot of time open right now because I'm trying to finish my dissertation, but might have more time coming up next year. But I also have some graduate readers on my website as well who've taken the classes and also do session work, and their prices are a little more affordable than mine. So I'm glad to offer that. Oh, and we have free student readings as well. Now we are fully booked up through December, but once a week we have practice groups and we do free readings on the public. And so anyone who's interested can go to my site and look up student readings and get yourself on the calendar if you can find open space there. So it's really nice to be able to offer that for people that would like some communication about themselves and just to see how readings are done. We have sometimes brand new students doing them and sometimes more experienced. So, the level of information sometimes it's, high up there and people walk away with feeling like they know a lot about themselves. And then other times it's like, well, got some kernels here, which, you might expect more with the newer students, but it's good to experience that. So yeah, and then just different resources on the website. And also I'll just say this weekend, we are sponsoring a healing workshop by Dr. Bill Bankston, and he's actually the president of the Society for Scientific Exploration, and he has been doing research for years now where he has done close to 17 studies where they healed cancer in mice, mice with tumors, and it was very well documented. I've heard testimonies at professional conferences of his work, and he teaches a healing method named after him, the Bankston Healing Method, which also helps my friend Krishanti, we're co-sponsoring his workshop this weekend. And she's found just these techniques also really help with manifesting things in your life, using the law of attraction pretty much to manifest what you'd like to bring into your life, and which is also the subject of my third book, Freeing the Genie Within. But I'm really excited, and we still have some spots left, and we're just offering a 2-for-1 special that we just started to offer for any last minute signups. So check that out. I don't have that up on my website, but anyone listening, if you are interested in attending this weekend, it's this weekend, and then there's going to be some additional practice days. So check that out on my website. And anyone who is listening right now, you won't see it on my site, but send me an email, DebraKatz@Yahoo, and let me know you saw that I gave you this offer, and we'll get you set up. So I think it's going to be really, really cool. I'm excited about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Debra, I could talk to you for hours and hours. So I hope this is just the beginning. And I know you're going to come back. Debra's already coming back to talk. We're going to do a little panel discussion about what it's like to live life as a clairvoyant, because I think it's a journey in itself. And that's coming up soon. But we've got more to come, and you're going to participate in our awakening in November, which I'm really excited about too. I'm trying not to say summit because I don't want to use it anymore. I'm not using that word. We're going to call it an awakening, but it's going to be really great too. So I'm honored to have you here. I have respected you and your work for so long, and there's so much more here. I took so many notes. I'm like, we could talk about so many different things. So
yeah, so much. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. This has just been so much fun. I've enjoyed talking to you more so than just about any other host I've had. So yeah, no matter what, we'll stay in touch. And yeah, and thank you everyone for your time and tuning in, and for your questions. I hope we got to most people's questions. And if not, always feel free to reach out to me too, and I'll do my best to respond as quickly as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys can always join our MeWe forum too at mewe.com. They have privacy bill of rights for everyone on there. So it's a safe place to be. And you just go to Buddhist Biohacker forum, and we can keep the conversations going there too. So share anything on there as well. And yeah, it's just been a joy, Debra. I mean, truly a joy. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. And we'll figure out, I've got parapsychology and remote viewing and all sorts of things written down. And, you know, and thank you for everybody who's watching. You guys are from all over the place, it looks like. So thank you for watching us. And I'll be back at 3 o'clock live with Deanna Hansen, the founder of Block Therapy and Fluid Isometrics. And we're going to be talking about fascia release, which is, you'd be surprised at the clairvoyant images that come up when you push into your fascia. So I'm excited to talk to her too. So thank you, Debra, so much. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you guys soon.